Good morning. Seoul proposes talks with Pyongyang on several issues of mutual concern, a continuation of efforts to thaw relations between the two Koreas. Families separated without knowing the fate of their loved ones, separated and unable to keep in contact, all wishing to be reunited. The jellyfish invasion is becoming a potential health hazard for beachgoers. See the machine that's designed to cut down on the pesky problem. And once known as a disease affecting the older population, the number of younger patients is on the rise. The search for effective treatment of Parkinson's. On Korea Today, Tuesday, August 12, 2014.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
And good morning and welcome to Korea Today on this Tuesday morning. I'm Kim Min-jung alongside Kim Young and Oh Jin-ju. The much anticipated Chuseok holidays are less than a month away from now, and train tickets for homebound trips will be available starting today.
Right, and Chuseok is the time when you give gifts to your parents and relatives or those who you want to show gratitude to. And mobile shopping nowadays could be a very good option to prepare for the gifts as we are living a very busy life nowadays.
That's right. Mobile shopping, online shopping with those applications has become so much easier. People are using it on a daily basis, a lot of them actually. And it seems that the peak times for that is from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
And that's when we're busy doing the show, but a lot of people are clicking away shopping for gifts.
That's right. So it's in the afternoon, it's in the evening hours where people tend to go ahead and start clicking away, buying gifts and stuff. And 18.5% of people spent that time shopping.
Interesting.
All right, then we will get to those the story of those Chuseok train tickets in just a moment. But for now, Seoul has offered to hold high-level talks with Pyongyang on several issues of mutual concern, in line with a series of moves to thaw relations and open the channels of communication. According to the South Korean Unification Ministry, the proposal calls for high-level inter-Korean talks to take place at the truce village of Panmunjom on August 19th. The ministry says that improving ties with Pyongyang is crucial and that it is prepared to talk about sensitive issues such as economic sanctions, the resumption of tours to Mount Kumgang, and reunions for war-torn families. If held, the meeting will be the second of its kind during the Park Geun-hye administration, following talks that were held in February, which yielded no major agreement. The offer comes days before the 64th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japanese colonization and the landmark visit from Pope Francis. Also on Monday, the Unification Ministry announced plans to provide the North with $13.3 million worth of humanitarian aid, while the North is set to join the Incheon Asian Games in September.
Leftist lawmaker Lee Seok-gi has been sentenced to 9 years in prison for instigating a rebellion against the government, though he's been cleared of charges that he had conspired and plotted the rebellion. The Seoul High Court on Monday found him guilty of inciting a plan to destroy some government structures during a meeting with followers in May of last year, but the court lowered the jail sentence of 12 years originally ordered by a lower court, saying he had not set the specifics. The ruling also did not recognize a secret underground organization, saying its existence was not strictly proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The court also stripped the 53-year-old lawmaker of his civic rights for 7 years, including his right to vote.
The biggest Korean holiday, Chuseok, is less than a month away, and advanced train ticket sales go on today and tomorrow. The Korea Railroad Corporation has begun selling tickets at designated stations across the nations and on with its webpage at letsKorail.com. On-site purchases can be made nationwide and online as well. Meanwhile, a recent survey by Auction Korea revealed 37% of respondents said they will be cutting down on Chuseok fares due to high costs, while just 10% said they would not make any changes. And regarding the amount they would be spending, the majority, 31%, chose the 200,000 won or some $200 range for the feast. The Chuseok holidays fall on September 7th through the 9th this year.
And as mentioned earlier on, the South Korean government has proposed high-level talks with North Korea next week, where the resumption of reunions of families separated since the Korean War will be high on the agenda. Now, it wasn't just the war that separated the families on the peninsula. Even after the war, families continued to be torn apart by North Korean abductions of South Korean nationals. And with today marking the day for separated families, we'll be taking a closer look at the families of these abductees with our Cheung-ju, who's joining us in the studio with more. Good morning, Hyung-ju.
Good morning, Jinju. Let me just briefly explain about the abductees to the north. We're referring to the South Korean civilians who were kidnapped by North Korea after the Korean War. Well, according to the Korean Red Cross, they make about 1% of the overall separated families. The number seems quite small, but the pain these families are going through is immense. So let's take a look at a closer look at the current situation of these families. At this house in Seoul, a man has been waiting to hear from his father for over the past 4 decades. Nam Jung-ho's father was abducted by North Korea. It was the summer of 1972. His father, Nam Jung-yeol, was one of the 10 fishermen who were kidnapped by the North.
My father was abducted in 1972, and it was in 2001 when I first heard news of him. At that time, I was in my late 30s, the same age as when my father was abducted. Had my father only been with us, my family would not be as broken up as it is now. We lost him when I was little, and that devastated my family.
After endless efforts in 2001, Mr. Nam learned that his father was alive in the north, and he had a stepsister. But he could not meet him in the end.
Countries reclaim even the remains of their soldiers who die on foreign soil. I just hope that I'd be able to collect his remains if he passes away in North Korea. I'd be so thrilled if I could meet him at least once before that day.
Back in February, over 760 South Koreans met with their separated family members at Mountain Kumgang in North Korea. This included post-war abductees to the north. According to the Unification Ministry, a total of 3,853 people were abducted by the North after the armistice agreement, and 3,319 of them have returned to the South, while 516 are still detained in the North. Among the detainees, 457 are fishermen, 11 are those kidnapped in the hijacking of a South Korean airliner, and 30 are soldiers or police officers. North Korea has only offered confirmation for 46 of 457 on whether they are dead or alive. Korean Red Cross organizes inter-Korean family reunions. Separated families of abductees can also apply for the reunion events. Abductees to the north and prisoners of war are categorized as separated families of special circumstances. They make up 10% of the participants of the family reunions.
North Korea states that there are no abductees. So, instead of organizing a special separated family reunion for the abductees, they are included in the existing family reunion events. So far, 18 families were reunited.
Despite numerous witnesses and evidence, North Korea denies these abductions and claims they are not abductees, but defectors of the North. So the South Korean government states that it has no choice but to approach the issue carefully. After all these years, Nam Jang-ho and other separated families of the abductees had to endure the pain of not even knowing whether their loved ones are alive or not.
After the Korean War, Pyongyang wanted to show that its regime is superior, so these people were abducted for political purposes. Much time has passed and the abductees are quite elderly. North Korea should be more active in organizing family reunions for the abductees to solve that issue.
When they were abducted, most of them were in their 20s and 30s, but they have aged through the decades, as seen in the photos obtained with much difficulty.
Abductees are those who have been kidnapped by North Korea, not during the war, but after the armistice agreement. So there needs to be a different approach from the general family reunions. We need more from Pyongyang, including a few abductees in the family reunions. We need further negotiations to solve these abduction issues.
The abductions have always been considered one of the important agendas for inter-Korean talks. I believe in-depth discussions of working-level meetings will ultimately help us find a key to the solution.
So, Hyungju, the families of these abductees are post-war victims, but it seems quite difficult to address this issue officially because North Korea is denying its abductions. So, what are some of the efforts being made by the South Korean government to help these people?
Well, right now, Seoul is pressing consistently Pyongyang to confirm the status of these abductees in the north, and also is seeking ways to revise the related laws so they can bring them back to their families alive. And but the meantime, the families individually, they are seeking other ways, unofficial ways, to get in contact or hear about the latest on their loved ones in the north.
And looking at the separated families overall, there isn't much time left as they are getting old. So the government should speed up efforts to help these families reunite. Could you tell us some of the things that are being done to make this happen?
Well, every year, the Korean Red Cross records video messages of the separated families in the south to the north. And also, starting from early next month, the government will collect the blood samples of the applicants of the family reunions. So they would have a reliable database later on, and they can identify their loved ones in the future.
And knowing whether their families are alive will be a big support to these families and will be a big step towards the reunion of these families as well. Thank you, Hyungju, for that report this morning.
Thank you.
Good morning. It's time to run through the front pages of your newspapers. Now, two main stories are on all the domestic papers this morning. Number one on the special Seoul bill, and number two on the leftist lawmaker Lee Seok-gi. Now, we'll begin with that number one story first on 동아일보, and it's the top one here. Now, the headline reads, Opposition Party overturns agreement on special Seoul bill within 4 days. So last Thursday, the rival parties had reached a breakthrough in negotiations over the bill, which was to pass the bill at a full parliamentary session just this Wednesday. Now, if you take a look at the sub-headlines, it notes that the parties are once again deadlocked over the bill as negotiations continued yesterday at the National Assembly after strong public opinion compelled the main opposition party to nullify the earlier bipartisan agreement. Now, no new agreement was reached yesterday, and negotiations will resume today. Meanwhile, also on Gyeongyang Shinmun, this side story is regarding the same issue again, but this one is on what the government, what President Park Geun-hye has said over the matter. And the title says, President Park says politics should exist for the public, urges end to political wrangling over special Seoul bill. So yesterday, the president pressed for the urgent passing of the bill on top of many other pending economy-related bills. She sternly criticized political circles as rival parties were renegotiating. Now, she requested for the parties to question themselves if they believe politics exists for the public right now, emphasizing that politics should exist only for the betterment of the people's lives. She further stressed that the special Seoul bill must be passed within this month with no further delay. And moving on to some other local headlines. First up on 조선일보. This one's that number two issue that I mentioned right at the beginning. This article is titled Lee Seok-gi instigated rebellion against the government. And those are words coming from the Seoul High Court yesterday. As you heard in the program's headlines earlier on, overturning a lower court's verdict of a 12-year jail sentence, the court acquitted Lee Seok-gi, affiliated with the minor opposition Unified Progressive Party, of charges that he had plotted a rebellion against the Seoul government in the event of an inter-Korean war, and only found him guilty of instigating the members to stage the rebellion. Thus, he was sentenced to a shorter 9-year prison term instead. And now moving on to some other local issues. First up on the Mail Business newspaper, we'll take a look at this headline regarding the upcoming visit by Pope Francis. Now, the header reads, Pope Francis to be at the center of Korean conflicts. This article says the Pope is expected to stand in the middle of Korea's social conflicts that have caused heated disputes during his 5-day visit here. Now, as it's stated in the sub-headlines, in that time, the Pope is to meet with the bereaved families of the Seoul ferry disaster victims, the elderly women who had suffered from sexual enslavement, residents of Gangjong village on Jeju Island, discharged Sangyeong motor workers, as well as Miryang power line protesters. Now, these are all of the Korean public who are involved heavily in very hot social confrontations. The paper, however, notes that such a situation may raise concerns that the significance of the Pope's visit on peace and reconciliation on the Korean peninsula may be disguised behind these controversial topics. And finally, taking a look at the Korea Economic Daily for the top story here on the government's policies regarding regulations. The headline reads, government to ease regulations if companies propose supplementary policies. Now, the government yesterday said it will enforce a regulatory improvement system to expedite investment by companies. And it says here in the sub-headlines that they will be called the so-called gray zone alleviation system, which will aim to rule out any conflicts between a new business or new investment project and an existing regulation. Now, what this policy is to do is allow for the easing of regulations if a company comes up with a supplementary measure that the government can accept, by which then the government will ease regulations for the newly established business. And that was a look at your newspaper headlines for this Tuesday. And now coming up are the stock numbers from Monday.
The mornings are decidedly cooler these days, and I didn't know I'd be saying this in the middle of August.
That's right, that's right. That ipchu, which mixed in with the malbok, seems to be working
did the wonders,
so far.
right?
But you know, knock on wood, right? Because we don't know what we're going to get today. So for more on today's weather, we'll go to Chun Song-cho. She joins us from Seoul Station.
Good morning to you, Song-cho.
Good morning, guys. I'm reporting live from the Seoul station, where many people have come out to book the train tickets for the Chuseok holiday. This just shows how hard it can be to get your hands on the tickets for Chuseok. All of these people are waiting in line for the ticket booths to open at 9 a.m., so still about an hour and a half to go, but the lines are already getting longer and longer. Some even came here hours before to secure their spot, but despite their fatigue, they look determined to leave here with a ticket in their hands by the end of the morning. Today you can buy tickets for Gyeongbu, Gyeongjeon, Chungbuk, and Gyeongbuk line, and the ticket windows will be open just for 2 hours in the morning from 9 to 11 a.m. But at this time, it may be better for you to just try your luck on the Korea website. And moving on to the weather forecast that you've been all waiting for. It has become a lot cooler during the mornings and the evenings, making our sleep a lot more comfortable. And with that, let's take a closer look at today's temperature readings. A massive cold air that's coming from the north is keeping the lows just above 20 all across the country, but temperatures will swing right back to around 30 degrees in the afternoon. Daegu and Gangneung will be the hottest at 32, while Seoul and Busan remain at 30 degrees Celsius. This is all for me with the weather forecast. Back to Minjang.
A political storm is brewing in Iraq as a new prime minister has been named. We'll get the details on this story and other global headlines we're following this Tuesday morning with our Eunice Kim standing by at the news center. Good morning.
Good morning, Minjung.
So it seems like it's unclear whether the incumbent Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki will step aside.
That's right, Minjung. Prime Minister al-Maliki has not been shy about expressing his desire to stay on as leader of Iraq despite widespread criticism, some from his once close allies, that his policies have not united the factions within Iraq and have even spurred on the support for the radical Sunni insurgency now shedding blood across northern Iraq. Now, the rift between Prime Minister Maliki and the country's new president came into full view on Monday when President Fuad Massoum nominated the Deputy Parliament Speaker as the new Prime Minister and asked him to form a new government, a request Maliki had hoped would be directed to him. Prime Minister Maliki's Dawa party rejected the nomination of his successor as the embattled Iraqi leader deployed elite security forces to secure main avenues in Baghdad as hundreds of his supporters held a rally, as you can see there. Washington has directly thrown its support behind President Massoum. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry from Sydney warned Prime Minister Maliki against the use of force in this moment of democracy for Iraq. Turning next to the latest on the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, 3 non-Africans with the virus have been treated with an experimental drug called ZMapp, and 2 of them are said to be making a steady recovery. With this in mind, the World Health Organization is set to make an announcement on this Tuesday on the ethics of using experimental drugs on Ebola patients. Medical ethics experts from around the world are gathered in Geneva to come up with guidelines for using unauthorized medicines in such emergency situations. Currently, there is no available vaccine for Ebola, and the latest death toll from the virus is fast approaching 1,000.
Well, in the meantime, this Friday marks the National Liberation Day here in Korea, and usually around this time, tensions rise between Korea and Japan over Japanese politicians' visits to the Yasukuni Shrine. Do we know what's ahead this year?
Well, Minjung, according to informed sources, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will not visit the controversial Yasukuni Shrine this Friday, which is also the 69th anniversary of Japan's World War II surrender. And this is being seen as an attempt by Tokyo to mend relations with China as well as Korea, relations which have been in the doldrums over Japan's hawkish approach on historical issues. The Yasukuni Shrine in Tokyo has long been a source of tension, as you mentioned, as it is considered a symbol of Japan's past militarism. You'll remember Prime Minister Abe's visit of the Shinto shrine in December. It provoked anger from Japan's 2 East Asian neighbors as well as Washington. So it looks like Prime Minister Abe will abstain from this Friday's memorial there, though his members of his cabinet are set to go. And relatedly, Japan's Yasukuni officials have said that it is not possible to separate the 14 convicted Class A war criminals from Japan's other war dead and the shrine itself, responding there to earlier international calls to create a separate secular memorial for the war criminals. And with that, we will wrap your look at the global headlines we are following this morning.
And still to come, the increasing number of jellyfish swarms are not only wreaking havoc in the fishing industry, they're causing major problems for vacationers flocking to beaches this summer. To tackle this problem, a Korean research team has developed a robotic solution. Stay tuned to find out more.
This place was once a hotspot for artists and also small theaters, performances, all culture was involved in this area. And what happens if a festival occurs there to bring back the people? Our Im Yoon-hee joins us with the results of that. Good morning.
Good morning, Young. So the first festival we're going to be taking a look at takes place at the Maronier Park, which is in the Daeangro area that we're talking about. Right.
That whole area used to be filled with, well, it still is. It has small theaters, but it was the main area before concerts, before musicals became all the rage here in Korea, these large-scale musicals. There were 3 live theaters there, including a lot of smaller theaters, which many artists held concerts at.
Right. So back in its heyday, it was, a hugely popular place and still is. But they did, over the time, trends do change. And so people did fall apart, fall from the area. But now they're trying to bring people back, and so they established the Maronier Summer Festival, and it's proven quite successful, as has another festival in classical music, so take a look. The trendy hotspot for young artists in Seoul, Daeangno's streets and alleyways are filling up once again for this year's Maronier Summer Festival. Between sidewalk plays to DJ performances, Maronier Park will serve as headquarters to the festival, where participants can enjoy camping, along with a wide range of various different performances. The rest of the festival will spill into the neighboring Daeangno Arts Theater, Arco Arts Theater, and Naksan Park, all areas sure to fill up with young spectators looking to enjoy their summer vacation. And cellist turned conductor Chang Ha-na is back again with their annual Absolute Classic concert. Since 2009, Korea's premier conductor has been inviting 100 young musicians from across the nation to participate in this month-long event, with 3 performances set to take place on Saturdays. This year's performance includes Debussy's La Mer, Brahms Symphony No. 3, as well as Stravinsky's Rite of Spring.
You know, when it comes to musicians turned conductors, you think of Jung Myung-hoon.
Right.
That's the name. That's the big name there. Pianist turned conductor. But Chang Ha-na is supposed to be the next big thing.
Right. She has been showing immense talent and success in that field. So she, people really know her as one of the most top cellists here in the nation. But she has nowadays really established a name for herself as, possibly the next top conductor of Korea. And so last September, she actually was instated as the full-time conductor of the Qatar Philharmonic Orchestra. And as a woman in her 30s, that's a huge feat.
That's right, such young talent there. You know, when you speak to the younger generation these days, a lot of them will tell you that they want to become a pop artist or a celebrity, and being a classical musician, that's kind of a little bit further down the list these days, right? And of course, Chang Ha-na, people like that are trying to change all that.
Right, so she is really trying to raise the next generation of classical musicians. And so she herself was actually a child prodigy, and so she started at a very young age. But with classical music starting at such a young age, it's possible to burn out when you get a little bit older. And so she really wants to, bring back the passion in classical music with events like this. And so she has said that past musicians from past events have told her that participating in this event, that Absolute Classic concert, has really re-sparked and reignited their energy and their passion for classical music. And I think that's what this is all about.
And it looks like it's reignited her energy as well.
Exactly.
Thank you very much for that.
Pleasure.
And stay with us on Korea Today. Later on, we'll be looking at a detrimental disease, Parkinson's disease. There is no cure, but there are some treatments, mostly diagnosed with the elderly. It seems that many people in their 40s are being diagnosed as well. Get informed about Parkinson's disease on today's Health Check.
Time now for news. Some of the phrase "thank you firefighters" has been trending online after a Korean comedian urged his fans to show support for the nation's firefighters by typing those words in search engines.
Right.
고마워요, 소방관.
Right, 고마워요, 소방관. It's definitely an innovative way to use web portals to express a certain sentiment. For more on this and other keywords, let's go over to our Misorang at the Digital Room. Good morning,
Good morning.
Misorang.
Good morning, guys. That's right. So this comedian in a popular TV program said that we don't appreciate our firefighters enough, even though they work in very tough conditions day in and day out, risking their own lives to save others. So that's the comedian that you see over there, Lee Sang-hoon, who started it all. Then everyone got behind the movement, and the phrase "thank you firefighters" entered and stayed high up on the search rankings. Now, to complete this heartwarming story, numerous firefighters expressed their gratitude in turn, such as a Seoul City firefighter who posted on his Twitter account, quote, "Thank you everyone for the search phrase." Now, this new novel method of using search engines for small internet campaigns is slowly picking up here in Korea, so it'll be interesting to see what the next movement will be. Now moving on, this map here is the recently found segment of a never-before-seen version of the 대동여지도. Now 대동여지도 is of course the large-scale maps of Korea made during the Joseon dynasty. Meanwhile, pre-orders of coins commemorating the papal visit went on sale yesterday, selling like hotcakes. The silver one on the left there has a face value of around $50, while the brass coin on the right around 10. And railway tickets for the upcoming Chuseok, or Korean Thanksgiving Day holiday season, started selling about an hour and a half ago. Now, there's always a mass exodus from the capital area every Chuseok, so if you're planning any trips around that time, make sure to book right now. And last but not least, singer Taemin is making a solo debut 6 years after coming into the K-pop scene as the youngest member of the boy band SHINee. And I'm going to leave you now with the video teaser to Danger from his upcoming mini album. So please enjoy. Bye for now.
It is a summer vacation season and a lot of people are heading to the beaches, but recently in the waters off the country's south and east coasts, jellyfish have become a cause of concern.
That's right. They're venomous jellyfish and they can get caught in gill nets and fish traps, becoming a nuisance for fishing. And if you do get stung by one, it does cause rash, pain, and in severe cases, even death. So it's not something to be taken lightly.
But in Korea, a new robot has been developed to help keep these jellyfish at bay. Let's first take a look at what this new device is.
In the past 2 years, the number of people injured by jellyfish has hit 4,000. with damages to the fishing industry reaching nearly $300 million. There have been a variety of efforts to reduce damages from these jellyfish over the years, but with an increase in numbers, trouble continues. That's why a research team in Korea has developed a new robot using cutting-edge technology to eradicate the problem.
This robot is a jellyfish terminator called Jeros. It has an unmanned GPS system, so once it receives input of where jellyfish have appeared, it moves to that area without guidance and it pulverizes the jellyfish using the device attached on the bottom.
The Jellyfish Elimination Robotic Swarm, or Jeros, floats on the water and has a funnel-like net and pulverizer which is suspended underneath the machine. Once a jellyfish enters the net, the propellers, developed by the team, remove the marine animal. The camera that recognizes objects can send images of the jellyfish swarms whenever and wherever in real time, allowing for easier detection of the creatures that appear close to the shore.
The camera can identify the image of a jellyfish and read where it is. Not only that, using this camera, it's able to only activate the propellers when jellyfish are around, saving energy for the device.
The Terminator robot is 1.2 meters wide and 1.5 meters long and can travel at 7 kilometers per hour. There is one leader robot and 2 follower robots that travel with it while maintaining the same distance and angle. They communicate with each other and are the first swarm robots to be developed in Korea that travel in a triangular form.
Using multiple machines and moving in swarms, they can cover larger areas, which make it much more effective than when you're using a boat or one machine. So that's why we decide to use swarm robots.
It's not easy to develop robots that can move in unison in a smooth S form, but the team developed a route planning technique which allows the follower robots to easily move with the leading machine by laying out a meticulous route and then assigning the mission. This is how the 3 can move as one.
Existing methods only used the calculation of distances, so it wasn't very effective. But the algorithm that we have developed takes into consideration swarm robots and robot spec the right path, so we can control the machines in a smoother and more stable way.
How do these robots identify the jellyfish and eliminate them? There's a smart buoy that detects and analyzes the jellyfish, and it sends this information to the base station and integrated prevention center. This predicts the movement of the jellyfish and assigns the mission to the robots on standby. With more jellyfish appearing in the summer, the extermination robots are expected to play a greater role.
And to tell us more about this jellyfish eliminator, or exterminator for that matter, JEROS, we're now joined by Professor Myung-hyun from the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering from KAIST. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning. Welcome to our show.
It's nice to be here.
All right, Professor, tell us how this actually works. Okay, we got a little sample from the video from our report, but how does it actually identify the jellyfish and just de-identify or stay away from getting the other fish?
Yeah, generally, the fishes can avoid this robot because they can move actively by detecting the sound of the motors and change of the current. But the jellyfishes are some kind of plankton, and they are not so active, and they are just moving around in the ocean current and the wave. So they can be inhaled by the robot when the robot moves forward fast. And we also use the camera in front of the robot so that the robot can discriminate the harmful jellyfish that we are targeting. And we are using the image processing technology to do such kind of task.
So this device kind of sucks it in, the jellyfish.
Yes.
So this device is effective on jellyfish, but could this technology be used on any other kind of species that are becoming a problem recently?
Yeah, the current system cannot be applied directly, but if the shredding part is redesigned in accordance with the new target object, and if we apply image processing and machine learning technologies, then we can target for the new kind of objects, and we can also exterminate other kind of harmful objects.
What was really interesting about this device is that it seems to move in a group, and there's a leader device and then two following devices.
It's like a marching band.
Right, it's pretty interesting in a triangle. Is there a reason why it needs to move in that way, and how effective is this?
Yes, you can easily understand if you imagine a group of ants that carries a big food together. So likewise, a group of robots can cooperate with each other to perform a task that is hard for a single robot. And so we can increase the efficiency and also gain the benefit of the swarm intelligence. So each robot is made in the same form for the swarm robots for the simplicity, and it makes a single robot simple and cost effective.
Interesting. And this device is on a trial period, I believe. And when can we see a full commercialization? And how effective do you think this will be in getting rid of the jellyfish?
Yes, from this September, this demonstration service will be started in the Masan Bay, located in south coast of Korea. And for this service, a company is making a new version of the robot with the size increased by 50% and with a better design. Once this service is proven to be useful, then the service area will be expanded to other places. And with the current system, we have limitation in recognizing the jellyfish location. So to mitigate this problem, we are also making a technology that uses the flying drones to recognize the distribution of the jellyfish. And this is prior to the dispatch of the robots. So we use the similar swarm formation control technology for oil spill protection. So if the oil is spilled by some accidents, then the swarm robots can cooperate with each other, and we can make the oil fences surrounding and protecting this oil spill area. This project is in progress right now.
Okay, it's interesting that it comes in many different colors as well, the swarm
It's like choose your model, make, and also choose that
yellow
color.
or red or
I
black.
want the one with the little pinstripes on there, right? Well, Professor, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off in the LPGA, where South Korea's Imi was able to win her first LPGA Tour title. Not to mention, she beat out Park In-bi of all golfers to claim that title. Despite Park In-bi having the lead for most part of the tournament, Imi shoots a 2-under on the final round to force a sudden death playoff against Park. Both golfers par on the first sudden death playoff hole, but it was Imi birdie on the second hole that gave her the win for her very first LPGA Tour title. Meanwhile, Park In-bi looks to defend her Wegmans LPGA Championship title later this week. And now switching over from golf clubs to hockey sticks, as the South Korean national hockey team bolstered their coaching staff after signing yet another former NHL player. 38-year-old Richard Park, who was born in Seoul but raised in the U.S., joins the South Korean national hockey team as the assistant coach. The second South Korean native to play in the NHL will coach alongside Jim Peck, the first Korean-born NHLer who was signed as the head coach of the national team. Now, as a right winger, Park scored over 100 goals with 6 different NHL teams. And now shifting over to baseball, where Korea will host yet another international event, this time in 2016, when the 2016 Women's Baseball World Cup will take place. Now, according to the International Baseball Federation, Korea was given the rights to host the 2016 Women's Baseball World Cup for the first time ever, as the nation will now host their third international baseball event. Now, Japan will host the 2014 Women's Baseball World Cup before the tournament comes to Korea 2 years later. And now with that, finishing things off with 3 of the games being rained out on Sunday. 3 games took place on Monday in the KBO as the Hanwha Eagles beat the LG Twins 4-2, with the NC Dinos cruising past the SK Wyverns 7-2. Meanwhile, big matchup between the Nexon Heroes and the Samsung Lions, so let's take a look at the highlights. And of course, going into the game, here we go over to the bottom of the first inning. Itae-gun, and there it goes to deep right center, gone, and the Nexon Heroes take a 1-0 lead. Second inning, we go over to the Lion King, Lee Seung-yeon with a man on, and this one deep to right, gone, number 25 on the season, and Samsung takes the lead 2-1. Third inning, man on second, Chete in RBI double to left center field, and it's now 3-1. Fourth inning with a man on, Park Byung-ho, that's number 36 on the season, and we're tied 3-3. Next inning, Itae-gun, and once again, his second of the night gives the Nexon Heroes the 5-3 lead. Eighth inning with Nexon up 6-4, Chae Young-woo deep to right field, gone, a 2-run shot, and we're tied again 6-6. Now this game goes to extra innings. We're in the 11th inning of the game. Lee Seung-yeon with a clutch RBI single gives the Samsung Lions a 7-6 lead and the win. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Parkinson's disease is a condition that well-known figures such as Muhammad Ali, Michael J. Fox, and Pope John Paul II have suffered from. It comes with tremors and stiffness in the body and is known as one of the 3 major geriatric illnesses, along with dementia and strokes. But recently, for multiple reasons, there has been an increase in the number of patients under the age of 40. In the midbrain is an area called the substantia nigra, which produces a chemical messenger referred to as dopamine. When a certain type of protein starts accumulating in the area, reducing the number of neurons transmitting dopamine, it leads to Parkinson's disease. According to a recent study, over the past 8 years, the number of people seeking medical attention due to the disease has jumped by 2.4-fold, and of them, 10% is younger than the age of 40. The symptoms from the disease gradually worsen and later leads to death. We learn more about Parkinson's disease.
Well, in Korea, there is an estimated 100,000 patients who suffer from Parkinson's disease. And with an aging population, that number is growing. We'll talk about this disease with two doctors joining us. Dr. Alice Hyung-Dan from Samsung Medical Center. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Dr. Lee Seung-min from Kyung University's Korean Medicine Hospital. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Now, we've heard of Parkinson's disease, and we've certainly seen those images of people trembling. What is the cause of Parkinson's disease?
Unfortunately, we do not know the exact cause of Parkinson's disease yet, but as we saw in the video, what's going on is neurodegeneration. Nerve cells are dying in a very specific part of the brain called the substantia nigra, and that causes a decrease in dopamine, and that's what leads to the motor symptoms that we're seeing. There are some genetic mutations that are responsible for Parkinson's disease in a small subset of patients, but most likely it is a combination of genetic factors with environmental factors that leads to Parkinson's disease in the vast majority of patients.
How about in Korean traditional medicine?
Well, so the most common form of Parkinson's disease is called idiopathic Parkinson's disease, which means that we really do not know the exact cause of it. But in Korean medicine, we attribute the symptoms to a pathological state of the liver, wind, and also a kidney energy deficiency, because these usually occur in the geriatric population.
So this disease was usually widely seen to be a condition widely seen among the elderly, but nowadays, why is it that we're seeing an increasing number of younger patients for this condition?
I've seen people around me that's suffering from Parkinson's at a very young age.
30s and 40s we're talking about, right?
Well, since we don't know the exact cause, it's hard to explain why there's an apparent increase in Parkinson's disease at a younger population. Some risk factors that have been researched include a history of head injury, also a lack of exercise, also exposure to herbicides and pesticides can also be a cause for Parkinson's disease. And so potentially earlier exposure or greater cumulative exposure to herbicides and pesticides may lead to Parkinson's disease later on at an earlier stage.
Dr. Yu, I think one of the things is to recognize the simple factors, the symptoms. What are some of the classic symptoms of this disease?
Well, that is a very classic exam question in medical schools, because the four main symptoms of Parkinson's disease is very idiosyncratic and clear. They are resting tremor, stiffness of limbs, slowing of movement, and postural instability. And resting tremor is one of the main symptoms, and they're very different from essential tremor or intentional tremor, because they start shaking like this when they're at a resting state. But when we tell them to touch the tip of their nose, for example, they will stop their shaking. And the moment they put their arms down, they start shaking again. It's more like a pill rolling tremor, that's what we call it, because it looks as if they are rolling a pill with their fingers. And when you tell the patients to stretch their arms out, it starts aggravating. And the stiffness of limbs starts because dopamine is a chemical messenger that coordinates smooth muscle movements. But then because they have a lack of dopamine in their brain, when we tell them to raise their arms, they become kind of robotic, very rigid in their movements. And they start to have problems initiating a movement, so they have a slower movement. And in the later stages, they also develop postural instability, so they lose balance frequently. But other than these, there are classic Parkinsonism type physical features, which is a hunched back, facial forward position. They have a Parkinsonism mask-like facial expression, which means that they have a dull expression. And they could also have constipation, depression, severe forms of insomnia, which really aggravates their quality of life.
Just seems like a whole slew of different symptoms coming together. Now, some people confuse it with dementia. Is there a reason too? And can you tell us about this?
Well, Alzheimer's dementia is the #1 neurodegenerative disease. It's the most common. And Parkinson's disease is #2. Okay. In Parkinson's disease, nerve degeneration is occurring in a very specific part of the brain, what we talked about before, the substantia nigra. However, in Alzheimer's dementia, the degeneration is happening sort of on a more widespread pattern across the brain. In dementia, when we talk about dementia, it's kind of an umbrella term that refers to problems with thinking, communication, mood, and memory. Dementia can be one part of Parkinson's. So it can be one component of Parkinson's disease. And both of these conditions, as you know, they increase in frequency with increasing age. And so people can just think, oh, they're occurring in the geriatric or the older population and kind of get them mixed up.
Right, I see. Well, this condition, this disease, there is no cure, I believe. You can treat it. Tell us about some of the options.
Well, unfortunately, as for now, we don't really have a fundamental treatment for this disease, but we do have medication, surgery options, and also acupuncture and venom treatment that can alleviate the symptoms and sort of increase the quality of life for the patients.
We will take a look at a short clip on some treatment options that are out there in Korean and Western medicines.
Recently, a team of Korean researchers developed new equipment to treat Parkinson's disease using ultrasonic waves. A low-intensity focused ultrasound brain stimulator refers to a method in which weak ultrasonic waves are used on the substantia nigra to trigger the release of dopamine and reduce the symptoms of Parkinson's disease.
Low-intensity focused ultrasound are non-invasive and a way to stimulate cells without damaging them. The waves can stimulate the brain from outside without any pain or surgery and help treat Parkinson's disease.
Low-intensity focused ultrasound treatment is also approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and fall in line with safety standards in Europe, giving it more credibility in terms of safety.
As of now, it's not a machine that can completely cure Parkinson's, but we're carrying out trial tests with that possibility in mind. Our final goal is to find a way to overcome the disease through our various attempts.
Meanwhile, in Korean medicine, effects of acupuncture and medicinal acupuncture using toxins from honeybees, otherwise known as Pongdok on Parkinson's disease, were announced at a global seminar receiving much attention. Traditionally, Pongdok has been used as a special cure for arthritis, neuralgia, and other pain-related conditions. The peptide substance from Pongdok is said to soothe the infection and reduce pain. Also, it adjusts the immune system and stimulates circulation in the body, showing good results for treatment.
According to basic experiments and research, it helps the dopamine play a more active role in the neurons. Pongdok is said to have a protective mechanism that helps protect neurons.
Over the past year, out of the patients who have received treatment for Parkinson's disease through acupuncture and Pongdok, 66% have shown improvements on the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale.
Regarding the effect of Pongdok medicinal acupuncture, we need to conduct more research on what component within Pongdok plays the role. We need to understand how this treatment can help patients who receive long-term treatment rather than short-term, and how it will help improve their quality of life.
Parkinson's not only creates immense difficulties for the patients, but also their family. And that is why a swift cure for the condition is much needed.
Interesting.
Yes, very, very different treatment options there, both in Korean traditional medicine and also Western medicine. Now, in the case of Pongdok treatment, now that's bee venom treatment, right?
Right.
And where do you carry out the procedure?
So bee venom is actually a toxin, so you shouldn't put it anywhere in the body. We say that the properties are related to moxibustion and acupuncture, and so it's better to put them on acupuncture points that Korean medical doctors know will help alleviate Parkinson's disease, which is Yanglinton, Gokji here, Joksamli, and Shimun. Now, these 혈자리 are known to alleviate the symptoms and also reduce the side effects of Parkinson's disease. So those four are the main.
And we also took a look at the low-intensity focused ultrasound treatment. How does it differ from the existing treatments?
Well, it's a novel treatment that's still in its investigational stages. And what it does is it delivers highly focused ultrasound through the skull deep into the brain, and it changes the abnormal signals that are occurring in Parkinson's disease. And it's usually used for the motor symptoms, the movement disorder part of Parkinson's. There's also a treatment called deep brain stimulation, in which an electrode is placed deep in the brain and is connected via a wire to a pulse generator that's implanted in the upper chest wall. This also delivers electrical signals. This is a surgical treatment, but it delivers electrical signals deep within the brain, and it helps also with a lot of the motor symptoms of Parkinson's.
So I guess it's a detrimental disease that you really don't want and keep it at bay, preferably. So what are some of the daily tips that you can give us so we can avoid and all of our viewers can avoid Parkinson's disease?
Well, with research results show, some population studies show that drinking coffee can prevent Parkinson's disease, especially in men. But also,
Americano's on me.
yeah. But then also, research is showing, as you saw in the video clip, that acupuncture and bee venom acupuncture can help. And so a leading researcher in this area, Professor Hee-Jun Park, for instance, says why not use acupuncture with such accumulating evidence. So that would be my tip, acupuncture, coffee.
And some nuts we're seeing on the video right now, some seeds and grains.
It's healthy stuff, right?
What about in Western medicine?
Well, since we don't know the exact cause, we don't know how to prevent it, but management of Parkinson's disease is very important, and using a team approach is very important. So occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, and also a psychologist or counselor, very important. Exercise to maintain balance and flexibility. Strength is very important, and fall prevention is important for Parkinson's disease patients because they're very prone to falling. And so things that you can do at home would be making sure there's adequate lighting. You put those anti-slip stickers on the bathroom floor, removing any slippery rugs. There are things that you can do outside of the doctor's office to help manage the condition.
Okay, very helpful tips indeed. Thank you to both of you for coming out today.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
next
you,
week. All right, well, that just about does it for this edition of Korea Today.
And enjoy the rest of your a little bit cooler Tuesday, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.